Hello, everybody. It's Kateri.
And Eóin Kylock.
Welcome to Tarot Talk by the Soothsayers team.
Welcome.
Welcome. Today's card is the Emperor, the dude card.
The man.
The man.
The man of the house. Hi, can I speak to the man of the house, please?
It's me. So this is a card of power, protection, like reason, conviction, authority, and will. Just
Destruction.
man.
Violence.
Just dude. Anyway,
Intellect.
it's something.
It sure is something. I'm not a big fan of this card, I'm not gonna lie. It's easy to read, but it's not my favorite card to pull in a reading because I'm like, ugh, this guy again. Seriously.
Yeah.
He's like that one customer who comes into your work and he's like, please, I ordered my coffee like 17 minutes ago and it's been like 30 seconds. And you're like, okay, relax.
Yeah, it's
Relax.
Liar.
Maybe you need tea. I don't think you need coffee today.
Need to relax. Yeah, the Emperor. What can you really say about it? History of the card wise? It's not really kind of, again, there's not a whole lot of history here except for dude. Um, like we discussed in last week's episode with the Empress, is that these are one of the easier cards to read in the deck because everybody has a parent or parent-like figure.
Everybody knows a dude, bro.
Everybody knows a dude, bro. And
Mm-hmm.
like how we said before that the Empress is really indicated by Aphrodite, this is straight up Aries. Like, this is Mars. This is everything that is war and
Smelly.
smelly.
This guy needs to this guy needs a shower. The emperor needs to shower.
He needs to wash his ass.
Yeah. The emperor is a man with an unwashed ass.
Joking aside, I'm not as harsh on this card as you are. It appears it's a card of authority.
I'm very hyperbolic, I won't lie. I
Yeah.
have a lot of opinions.
Yeah, it's a card of rulership. This is definitely, I say this, and then it's the girl bossing card.
Mm-hmm.
It's like gatekeep, girl boss.
Yeah.
It's
And all the same disclaimers as last week's Tarot Talk with the Empress in terms of divine gender, divine masculine, divine feminine. Everything has good parts and bad parts. And
yes.
they're not related to human gender.
Yeah, and we're not going to honestly listen to the last episode because I think we had a really good discussion on divine gender, because I think that people can get a little crazy on it both ways, whether it be complete denial of it or complete, like, dogmatic.
Too much embrace. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a dogmatic embracement of it. So, as always, holiness is in the center.
Balance. Again. Balance.
Light and dark. But yeah, so the Emperor is it's dad. It's the daddy card.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh, I actually just literally thought of a pop culture connection that I'm going to add to our list here once we get to that portion, because once you see it, you're going to laugh your arse off because you know that's not it. Give me a second.
I just watched you type cartomancy.
Yeah, no, it's not actually cartomancy. Maybe you're going to know once it actually fixes.
We'll see. Yeah. It'll be a surprise for all of us.
It'll be a surprise for all of us. Absolutely. So, again, history-wise, there's not a whole lot to say here, except for it does represent Aries, or any gods of war in general, where the Empress very much so represents goddesses of fertility and love and beauty. This is straight up a pointy stick.
I guess a sort of comparison would be Persephone and Hades.
Yes. Yeah, if we actually want to talk about like more positive connotations when it comes to this pair, it is definitely... they're paired together nicely because they are kind of polar opposites of each other.
Yeah. So Persephone and Hades. Everybody go read Lore Olympus. Okay.
Not wrong.
My worst secret, my deepest shame is I actually read and quite enjoy Lore Olympus. I don't ever use it as actual like mythological fact or a source for things, but I do really like it. I really like it. I read all of it in like 3 days.
It's all archetypes at the end of the day. It's all human archetypes and just how we recognize it and how we connect to it. So when it comes to some parallels, we did discuss this a little bit and the difficulty of telling the difference between the high priestess and the empress. Let's talk about the magician and the emperor, and how it's kind of like the opposite, where the high priestess is cold while the empress is very warm. The magician's very warm and charismatic, while the emperor is very cold.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, the Emperor is very much the, I don't want to say the polar opposite, but he definitely, the Emperor and the Empress complement each other in good ways, but they can be quite toxic for each other. It really depends on, well, for like in my experience, for example, when it shows up in a reading, if they show up together, it will depend on the person and the cards around it, but it can either mean a very good and a very balanced and strong relationship, or quite literally the exact opposite.
Yeah, very toxic one, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we do see a development between the first Trump and the second Trump when we see the magician, the high priestess, and we see the development into the empress and the emperor. And you kind of see that almost role reversal, where in the youth, the magician's very warm and outgoing, again, charismatic, and then it kind of turns cold when it has to go into this authority type figure. Well, the high priestess in its youth is very much so secretive and cold and mysterious, and then it kind of develops into this very open and fertile and warm, nurturing type figure. So you kind of see that development there. It's almost like the difference between youth and then adulthood. And when it comes to the emperor and the empress, is that they're very much like the adults of this poll.
Hmm. The parental figures.
Yeah. Mom and dad.
I
Mommy
love
and
that
daddy.
comparison so much. I love that in these 4 episodes we get to say mommy and daddy like every fucking sentence that we say. It brings me so much joy. We're
Yeah,
definitely gonna get like an explicit mark on Spotify, but I don't even care, man. It's gonna be so fun.
yes, the Crow is censoring is going to have a good time this last few episodes. um, so yeah, the Emperor is. It's a very much so a aggressive energy when they show up in readings, and
Hmm.
I think that a few people get kind of confused when this card kind of shows up, and a lot of it has to do with taking control, whether you like to or not. Either something's taking control of you, or you're taking control of it.
Yeah, where the Empress will be very sort of generous, the Emperor will be a little bit more selfish, and that is not always a bad thing. Sometimes we need to do things for ourselves. We need to take control, and we need to be aggressive for our own selves, and that is how we will progress as people and how we will keep ourselves safe. Being aggressive is not always a bad thing, and especially when it comes to sort of, I guess, minorities, people like minority people. We see the Emperor a lot in standing up for yourself and being defending yourself and your culture and your people.
Yes.
Um, and that is all. Those are always good things. That's always a good thing to do, even if you're being portrayed as aggressive in air quotes again.
Yeah, and that's the negative portions of like the Emperor itself, because the positive portions of like, sorry, the negative portions of the Empress is overbearing. Well, the Emperor is a different type of overbearing to the point of authority. It's a
Hmm.
point of control. Like they're controlling not out of a sense of concern. They're controlling because me, me, me,
They
me, me,
want
me.
power. Yeah,
Yep.
it's very much where the Empress is exactly as you were saying. The Empress is controlling because they care, and the Emperor is controlling because they care about themselves and they want the power and control over other people for their own
Yeah.
personal gain.
Yeah, and that comes into almost like stereotypes and such, because there's definitely parents out there that can kind of like manifest both of these type of energies, right?
Hmm.
They're just because somebody is a cishet woman who is a mother doesn't mean that when they're overbearing, they're not kind of channeling the emperor because they're doing it for their own self gain, right?
Hmm.
I think it's just that quote unquote on default we have that kind of mindset that they're doing it out of concern, but sometimes they don't, and that comes into that again. Although these cards indicate a divine gender, it does not mean it indicates every woman and every man.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Every woman, every man, every person, regardless of gender, can embody any trait of the Emperor and the Empress.
Yeah. And again, the emperor is really straightforward. It's just it's authority, and it's just a kind of an overbearing thing. So um, it's parallel wise. We're going to go back into again conscious, subconscious, superconscious, and its parallels is with justice and the moon. So justice is very straightforward. Justice is an annoying card in my opinion, just because it's like it's righteous. It's a righteous type
Hmm.
of card, right? And we see that with the emperor quite a bit. Just this righteous power that they're in power, not necessarily because they deserve it. They're in power because they feel like they're entitled to it.
Yeah, it's very much where justice would be like righteousness. The emperor can always sometimes, good job, also sometimes be self-righteousness.
Yes.
Um, and that is where we see that comparison as well.
Yeah, and it comes into the moon. So it's funny because how the moon is red in tarot, which we'll get to and going deeper. But the moon is kind of like that concept of lunacy, and kind of like unknown. And you would think that with the moon being like a quote unquote feminine type of energy, that why is this associated with the emperor? And it comes into is that this is the negative portions of femininity, which is like that kind of quote unquote craziness, right? When I say
Hmm.
craziness, I don't mean that like saying that all women are crazy, but again, you kind of see those parallels with the emperor is that the decisions they make don't necessarily make sense because they don't have the best interest in mind. They just want to make decisions, then stroke their own really. And
Do you mean ego?
yes, oh, okay, that's probably our poor crow right now. Um, but it is, yeah, it's really is a stroking of ego just because the decisions they make are kind of crazy. And that's where you kind of get into the tyrancy, right? The moon is craziness when it comes to the concept of the tarot. So you'll see decisions made that don't make sense just because they just want them. They're just doing it just for the sake of doing it,
Hmm.
which is toxic. We see that in
A
just
wee
regular
bit, so
life.
it is. But yeah, that is the Emperor. What are your experiences with the Emperor? How do you read him? How does he come up for you?
Usually they come in two things is that either there's going to be an overall pressure to succeed. The Emperor almost always comes up in two types of readings, either love readings or career readings for me. In career readings, it usually indicates either you have to suck it up, take control. Especially, I see this a lot of entrepreneurs when they're kind of trying to be everybody's friend, especially to their employees. And sometimes that doesn't quite work, especially with how horrible the economy is nowadays.
Hmm.
The only way to succeed is to step on people, which is a horrible way to live, but that's just reality. So
Capitalism.
capitalism, right? So that is usually telling you it's just like if you want to succeed, step on a few necks. So it comes up in career readings in the regards of either there is you need to take control or somebody is taking control of you and you need to snap out of that.
Hmm.
In the case of love, it depends on the surrounding cards. In most cases, it indicates a control issues. It's usually issues with control when it comes
Yeah,
up in love.
absolutely. When I am when it comes up for me and those are yeah, for me it actually also comes up mostly in either career readings or love readings. In love readings I found it to be usually more negative. It's usually a partner or you yourself that is being very controlling in a bad way, and you're the power dynamic in that relationship is not healthy, and you are contributing to it, or you're not doing what you can to sort of listen to your partner and be equal partners in this relationship. And when it comes up in the career reading, I guess earlier, like what you were saying, I do sort of have a more negative view of the Emperor because for me, when he comes up in these readings, he is usually the boss. I guess he is the boss who's sort of stepping on your neck, who's not listening to your needs and your demands, and it's usually an indication that you need to become the emperor yourself, and you need to understand the more positive sides of it and stand up for yourself and not be afraid to step on a few necks yourself, you know. Take control of your own life and your own job, and take it in the direction you want to go. So
Yeah.
when it's usually positive and negative for me, because usually the only solution to having a sort of negative emperor in your life is to sort of become the emperor yourself, in my experience.
Yeah, and it comes into is that if we want to discuss a few parallels with the chariot as well, because sometimes people get the emperor and the chariot confused because a lot of it comes to do with control. Um,
Hmm.
the emperor is very much in control for the sake of authority, while the chariot is very much so in control for the sake of getting um, tasks done. Like it's very
Yeah,
almost like a mastery.
I
It's
see
not
the
like
chariot a lot as sort of more taking control of yourself, and the emperor as taking control of others.
yes, exactly. That's a very good example of that.
Hmm.
So I'm always kind of thinking of different ways when I'm listening. Like I'm thinking of my our listeners here. It's like, okay, this is what I know what the emperor means, but what about this card that seems similar? There is differences, right?
Hmm.
Um, so and it's interesting you said emperor because I actually or the negative portions of the emperor and how you see it as negative. I see it as a really strong positive when it comes to any type of readings to do with education or um, creativity. Like anybody
Hmm.
who's like kind of I want to say business, but like if somebody's like a creative, I think it comes up very positively because if somebody's going back to school, for example, and it pops up, it usually indicates you got your together.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't
Yeah.
know. I've never really had super positive experiences with the emperor. Um, Sort of like in my own readings or in the readings of other people. Obviously that is not the case for everyone, and that's, I guess, just sort of my reading style and how I see the emperor and why the emperor sort of appears in a reading to me because that's what I associate it with.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm glad we were able to bring two different perspectives to the table this time.
Yeah. Again, I make this joke, but it's definitely the girl boss card.
Yes.
Card that's very much so. It's just like for all its empowerment, it can be really cringy.
Hmm.
It's funny
Yeah.
because a lot of people kind of consider like the divine feminine as some sort of empowerment. And I'm like, but is it? Is the emperor an empowerment? I'm like, I don't think any of it's empowering. I think it's all kind of really unbalanced. And people kind of dig into that too much.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
I think that
absolutely.
for me, again, this may be my just personal experience. And if your experience is different, great. But I don't necessarily find empowerment from gender in general. I find
Hmm.
that there's power there, but for my personal empowerment, I think the things that I do is more important than the things that I am.
Absolutely. That's actually a really good way to say that. I think my own sort of experiences with gender have a what's it called tilted me and like made me a little bit biased when it comes to, because even though I am a huge believer in separating the divine gender from human gender, obviously I still have these internal biases a little bit, and that's
Mhm.
why I see certain cards in certain ways. But yeah, that's actually a really really good way to put it. Things you do instead of things you are,
Yeah,
in
and that
terms of
comes
empowerment.
yeah, and that comes into is that I don't as again a cishet woman is that I don't think that me being a woman makes me special or different in any way, shape, or form. I can
Hmm.
find power in that, but I don't think that just by my existence alone gives me a level of a euphoria, I guess. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to exactly kind of navigate that in a way that makes sense to people. But I think that for me is that gender has always been complicated for me in a way that I don't care about it. Does that make sense?
No, do you know what? It actually does. I can understand what you're saying, and I think people listening will as well. I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think that's where I can kind of get a little I don't want to say I don't think I'm controversial in any way, shape, or form, but I don't care about people's gender. No matter what it is. I just want to see them as people
yeah.
regardless.
Hmm.
Um but
And with
that's
that,
a little bit of this a little side thing
with
because
that
again
sidetrack,
exactly let's go into honestly we got some parallels how we experience it. What's some pop culture connections for you?
okay. Well, for me, as we've seen, from my own sort of experiences with the Emperor, for me, the Emperor is very much represented in Mr. Burns from The
I
Simpsons.
love it. I love it.
um, we see the very much this sort of this control freak, and he's very like all he cares about is power for his own personal gain. He cares about money. He's all about growing, but only not as a person, but growing monetarily and growing in power. Um, like when he tried to block out the sun, for example. I think that's very much the emperor, in terms of this sort of what's crazy with power. Like, you know how like too much power changing a
Just I
person. I
think
can
it's
see
just
that a lot with
drunk
the
with
emperor.
power. Yeah, it's like the
Yeah,
Mr.
drunk with power.
Krabs too, like the Mr.
Oh
Krabs
my
saw, but
god,
like
yes.
the bottom line, right? And there's like
Yeah.
any deviation from that, then it's a meltdown.
But I also would like it to be made 100% clear that the Emperor is not always evil. I also see the Emperor a lot in Derek Shepherd from Grey's Anatomy, McDreamy or
Mhm.
McSteamy. I don't. There was a lot of McEamies, and I can't remember which one he was. It's been a while. No, because there was McDreamy, there was McSteamy. I think he was McDreamy. He definitely was.
Listen,
Derek was McDreamy.
I didn't watch
Um,
Grey's Anatomy, but McSteamy just sounds disgusting.
no, I think McSteamy
Because
was his like his best friend. What was his
I
name?
can't. Like
Mark. His
every
name was
time I hear it, I
Mark.
cringe. McSteamy. That sounds like some sort of like something that you have to find on the dark web.
No, but Mark and Derek actually are both really good representations of the archetype of the emperor. Mark, or not Mark, Derek, as we see, is he's quite caring. He cares about Meredith, but he's also a neurosurgeon. He is egotistical. Is he? Yes, he is.
They
He's
all are.
egotistical. He's in control. No, I was trying. I couldn't remember if he was a neurosurgeon or a heart surgeon, but no, he definitely is. He's definitely a neurosurgeon. Um, and he's got that ego. He's got that very much the need to be in control. We do see throughout the series that when he's not in control, he feels very unsafe. He's very anxious, and he doesn't feel good in himself because he embodies the emperor. He needs to be in control, and while he does sometimes use that for the good of other people, it's mostly a personal thing.
Yeah. And an example that I have as well, going back to the Marvel like references here because honestly they're easy. Nick Fury.
Hmm.
Nick Fury is a good one too because it doesn't necessarily indicate like a father type character, but it indicates a character that is calmly in control. This is the more positive aspects of the chariot. Nick Fury kind of commands a space, but you never feel like it's for the sake of stepping on somebody else. It's just to be able to get things done, right? And again, he's in command of other people. And this is more of a positive aspect of it because Nick Fury, no, even when you're a kid and you're watching these movies, you just know that Nick Fury is the man, right? He's the one that everybody listens to, no matter what. Even these most powerful superheroes in the world are going to take commands from Nick Fury.
Yeah,
And it's
he's
Samuel L. Jackson.
terrifying.
He's
He is
terrifying,
literally, yeah, yeah.
but it's not in a way that is negative. It's just that he commands a space. There's a big difference between demanding respect and commanding respect. And the positive aspects of the emperor is going to be commanding respect.
Mhm. The emperor very much embodies both. He definitely like that is again the positive and negatives of the emperor. The negative being that he demands it, the positive being that he commands it. And you're 100% correct in that. Yeah, I agree
Yeah.
100%.
Um, Another example I have is like literally every king in Game of Thrones. Literally every one of them. We got your positive ones and like the concept of Ned Stark, who is just a good father and he's doing everything to keep his kingdom alive, to King Joffrey. So you're going to see a lot of really kind of concepts there of just leadership in general and the good leadership and the bad leadership.
Yeah, I have never watched Game of Thrones. So this I've tried to. I just couldn't get into it. I was gonna read the books because I'm a bit of a reader.
Mhm.
Um, but Jesus Christ, those books are those aren't books. Those are bricks.
Yes, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But again, that comes into the difference of like power because every leader in that series is going to show both positive and negative portions of the emperor. And this kind of pulls into my little pop culture connection I threw in there last minute. Cartman.
Oh my fucking god.
Tell me I'm wrong.
I
Respect
actually,
my
oh my god.
authority.
You're not wrong, but I need you to leave right now. Get out. I'm leaving. I'm
Podcast cancel.
quitting. Podcast cancelled.
For the 80th time this week, it's Cartman. Like
Oh
you
my
see
god.
Cart if you watch South Park and you watch like that dynamic, Cartman is just
Mm.
that little prick.
I used to watch it with my older cousin when I was like 10.
Yeah. But you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I
Overbearing.
do.
Just like
Yeah.
straight up. If he doesn't like something, it's gonna be ugh, everything has to go his way. It's not a fun character to be around. And those are like that negative aspect. But it's
Mm-hmm.
so fun. Again, all I can think of is like that episode where he's I think he was like he's dressed up as a cop. He's looking up, he's like, respect my authority. And like, yeah, the Emperor constantly just has aviators on.
Oh my god. Get out. I'm finished with you.
Yeah, just put eight. Like, I'm gonna get like a little picture of aviators. I'm just gonna glue it to every one of my emperors, and then just be like, "There it is."
Oh, no. Please don't do this to me. We went from McDreamy to Cartman.
There's a lot of dualities in this card.
There are, and there's a lot of people who will embody this archetype. Try and find your own as well within your own concept of pop culture and your own favorite TV shows. Um, because these are we're currently using very popular, very famous ones because everyone will get it, but it will help you to remember the cards better if you find your own. And like it's
Yes.
perfectly fine if you also identify with these ones. Like if you love South Park and you love Greys, great.
Yeah.
You're set. But don't be afraid to find your own as well, especially in the people in your life. It doesn't have to be pop culture. Every single person in my life is associated with a tarot card to me.
Yes, and that's very important is actually bringing down to the mundane because you have to be able to really kind of go from fantasy to mundane and finding everything in between. Again, tarot is like an interpretation. You're actually connecting like art to reality, and whether it be connecting art to art or reality to reality, it's just that find the parallels, find the connections. I think as tarot readers, we almost pull together the threads. Like I'm sure you see like in pop culture where like they're doing the investigation, you see all these pictures on a wall and there's always like red threads connected to them all.
Oh my god.
That's usually what tarot readers do. They're connecting those dots for people.
Spiritual detectives.
Spiritual detectives. I'm like sitting there. I have a cigarette hanging out of my mouth. I have like a half drunk bottle of whiskey, and I'm just like, what does it mean?
Me every time we go to record this podcast.
Yeah, I like we're kind of like the investigators, like, and that's the thing. Like, I could go on this in future episodes, but when it comes to the concept of psychic power and tarot readers, I think that tarot reading is a very specific role, which is again kind of connecting those dots for people. And
Mhm.
that's why I don't refer to myself as a psychic, but the work I do is spiritual. And I don't want to say psychic in nature, but psychic in nature. But I don't
Mhm.
like saying myself as psychic because I'm using that mood board to connect all of the mysteries together and kind of make sense of it for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with that we can finish up.
Yes, absolutely. So again, like last episode, I'm not going to get too far into the outros because you know where to find us. There's a link below to the Soothsayers Tea link tree, which is going to not only have access to where you can find this podcast, but our social medias and then our own personal social medias. Because I'm Kateri at Vinoxus, where you can get personal readings from me, and you can check out my Instagram where I do post not only daily reels but a bunch of other cool stuff.
Yeah, I'm Onan Kylock. I run the Soothsayers Tea Twitter, as well as all my own Twitters and my own tarot website where you can buy readings from me. And if you have any questions about this episode or any previous episodes or even future episodes, feel free to add us on Twitter and I will respond as cryptically as I can. So,
Absolutely. Same if you want
yeah.
to shoot me a message on Instagram. We're available for you guys.
Yeah,
And with that being said, my name's Kateri, and I hope you have a fantastic Monday.
yeah. And I've been Onan Kylock. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.